Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Hard Truth, where I'm delighted to be joined by my friend, Alana Mercer. Hi, Alana.
Hi, my best friend David Vance. Good to
It,
see you. It's been a long while.
yeah, it's been a bit. Time goes by so quickly, Alana, as we all know, and it's great that this is the first Hard Truth of 2024. And my goodness, well, there's always so much to cover, and we've got a big topic to tackle this evening. But just before we get to that event, conversation, I just want to flag up very, very quickly the fact that, as you know, Alana, I've
hmm
started to put on live events, most of which, well, the last one was in London. And the one I'm going to just bring up on screen now is happening in London, 1st of March. I'm joined with Mr. Lawrence Fox, famous actor, the Fox acting dynasty, and also, of course, leader of the Reclaim Party here in the UK, and a really interesting guy. And then Father Calvin Robinson, another interesting person, who is both of whom, Calvin and Lawrence, both presented TV shows, Alana, here in the UK, and both of them were cancelled last year. They were both
Really?
removed
Oh,
for daring to say things like you and I would say, So I thought it'd be great to get these guys together,
uh-huh.
get them together on stage in the UK and London, and people come along and
Do
talk.
they do those marvelous series on any one of them on the BritBox? The wonderful Line of Duty, some amazing series you have coming out of England. Do they do any of those? Do they
Yeah,
act?
I think Lawrence Fox has appeared. Yeah, I mean he has been in several TV documentaries. I also think he's
Oh,
been,
documentaries.
like a crime series and stuff like that. And
Yes.
I think he's been in movies as well. I mean, his father is I think Edward Fox, who's been in many big movies. So he comes from an acting background, and but he's a good guy. He's a really good guy, and he says the unthinkable, and he challenges a lot of orthodoxy. But both he and Calvin were both punished in 2023. So March 2024, they're going to be on stage with myself and a colleague, and we're going to have a great night of conversation. So anybody watching this, if you're going to be in London town, come along, 1st of March, bring a stab vest because it's London after all, Alana.
Oh,
London stand.
oh no.
Bring a stab vest, but I can assure you that on the night, everything will be pleasant and very nice. It's a lovely venue we've got, and it should be good fun. Right, okay. I've got the. Sorry for that, Alana, but I wanted to get that out of the way because these events are, we talk a lot, you and I, about the freedom to talk about things, freedom of speech, and in some ways, it's not getting easier; it's getting harder and harder because if you step outside the Overton window, which you do, and I can't help but do, um, then the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune are somewhat directed upon us. Uh,
David, and you have the speech police. You can actually get prosecuted. Here we still have our amendment, our constitution that
yes,
allows us some freedom. But of course, um, I'm going to be publishing a book about deep tech, deep pharma, and the aberrant economy in a few weeks, and those huge,
mhm,
as big as states, as big as 5 or 6 states combined in terms of wealth, when they cancel you out,
there you go.
there's no way back. So
Well,
freedom of speech is everything.
Alana, I did a podcast recently with Naomi Wolf. She made the same point that you made, that at least in the States you've got your First Amendment
Yes.
and what we don't. And she was concerned because she viewed like Europe as a whole, not just the UK and Ireland, but fundamentally this part of the continent as a kind of center of enlightenment and so on and so forth. And her view was that, and well, it was my view actually, that this may be where enlightenment was born, but Alana, it may be where enlightenment is buried because of deep tech and the whole sort of almost fascist style governments that we have
Yes,
operating.
and also tribunals, state uh, tribunals that police speech and can put you in
Yep.
jail for words you say, for things that waft out of your mouth
Yep.
and harbored
Yep.
in your mind,
Yeah.
and we should be free. Freedom of speech means the Nazi salute, do it if you want, buy a flag and burn it. That's
Yep.
why the topic we're going to segue
Yes.
into, I mean, when Palestinians had an Israeli flag on a pickup that they owned, they were burning it. Not nice, rude, unpleasant, but they had the right to do that. That's freedom of
Yeah.
speech,
And
right?
that's one of the fundamental things that you and I are absolutely united on. People have a right to say things that might be offensive, nasty, hateful. Even I don't care. I'm big enough to accept it all because I
Yeah.
recognize, Alana, if I start to limit their speech, then someone's going to limit my speech. So honestly,
Yeah.
unless it's incitement to murder or something grotesque like that, which
And
would be
we do have laws
we have
against.
laws.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
we do have laws against that.
yeah,
Fire
yeah.
in a theater, but I'm even,
Mm.
I'm for unfettered speech,
Same
absolutely.
here.
And it's interesting. We always bounce off each other because we think alike. You
Yeah.
mentioned the Enlightenment and this essay. I want this purge, this intellectual and moral and philosophical purge that I underwent about Israel. Um, it's interesting that you bring up the Enlightenment, but because one of my points in it was that the current, what I call the Jewish Taliban, is not the Israel under which I grew up as a young person. I grew up in Israel, and I placed the early influence in Israel was of the founding generation, which was old left, coming out of the Jewish Enlightenment, many of them German, very strong influence was the Germanic Jews. And I meticulously, being fluent, unlike Ben Shapiro, being actually fluent in Hebrew. He says he knows Hebrew. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, I was very meticulous about documenting everything in Hebrew as well in this essay. Haskalah is the word we use for enlightenment in Hebrew. And those people raised us, and we had no religion in school when I was growing up. You could go to a religious Jewish school, but most of the state schools were absolutely a-religious. And I don't remember ever hearing what has been mainstreamed in Israel, which is something you would find in the madrasa,
Well,
ethnocidal, genocidal talk. I didn't not grow up like that in Israel.
one of the reasons I was so keen for us to get together and have this conversation, and we will focus on what you've written, what, as you say, that sort of purge of your system. You see, and obviously what we're talking about, folks, is we're going to talk about the whole Israel-Gaza situation. And Alana, we first tackled this back in October, very shortly thereafter the initial October 7th event. We talked about it then. We revisited the story then about a month after that or so. And now we're returning to it because I think there's a lot of things. There's so much to discuss in this one. There really, really is. And I mean, if we can just bring up, Alana, let's bring up your kind of fundamental article, which, and I just want to bring up, there's a few things at the very top of it which I've talked about here. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Lana, I'm not just saying this because you're on your own, but some of the things that you say, I mean, they're really quite profound. And I mean, I've been called a Zionist shill. I've been called all kinds of names because I don't necessarily go as far as you, but you're in a position to go as far as that you want, basically. And as you say in this here, we'll just start at the top of the thing, is that, the Israel you say here of your formative years, it wasn't an Eden, but it wasn't a terrorist state. So and Jewish supremacism, like American exceptionalism driving the US foreign policy, breeds barbarism. I mean, those are big words. And I don't know that there's any other commentator coming from your perspective saying those things, which is one of the things I love about you, Alana.
David, now, Con Inc. I actually thought I was quite secure with Conservative Inc. American Conservative. Be nice to me. They published, my outlets published everything I wrote about Genghis Bush, during the Iraq War. The same principles I applied
Yep.
to Bush with no fear or favor, and nobody would touch Israel. I was told in no uncertain terms,
Yep.
don't bring this to us. Before going into this, how do you explain that? The utter, protective patina on the Jewish state, refusal to so much as criticize or bring up these very relevant issues, mass murder.
Yep.
And David, like you, I'm a Zionist.
Yeah.
Was because
Well, yeah.
I will never again after this. I don't think if something's unfair, of course I'm going to say it, just like you. But I will never again defend Israel. Sorry, that's why this 4,000 word essay was such a huge purge. It was terribly painful.
Yeah, well, Alana, I've read the whole essay several times now.
Thanks.
And yeah, but I totally get what you're saying. It feels like you are articulating some very deep-seated and meaningful emotions and opinion, which kind of goes against the. Well, I mean, you mentioned Ben Shapiro and people like that. I mean, we have these individuals who basically seem to be quite happy, quite honestly, for Gaza to be wiped off the face of the earth.
This is the majority. I mean, never mind Ben Shapiro. He's just an Israel first. I don't know how he's risen to such prominence. His main, I always listen because I was on WorldNet Daily, and then he got syndicated and came on, and I'd observe closely. Where's the profundity? Where's this? Where's fast talking, high IQ? Probably. I haven't seen much profundity, other than secondhand, opinion. But what about, so he's immaterial. I will commend Candace Owens for
Yes, yeah.
inching towards truth. But what about, ethnocide, even genocidal expression being mainstreamed in Israel? That's one of the things that I think I bring critical mass evidence in this column. Not only prominent opinionators, but government officials mocking and outright speaking about evacuating the people of Gaza. In fact, I link to and highlight a policy paper that talks about tent cities. Arei Ho'alim in Hebrew, tent cities. We're going to create 10 cities. This is a government policy paper. Then there is another 10 cities for 2 million people in Gaza City. That's an evacuation. That's ethnic cleansing. Then there are other, very many. Not only has it been mainstreamed, most of the Israelis, I looked for opinion poll, David, and as you know, Google, just comes down like an iron curtain, and it just directs all your searches. But to the extent that you can find out public opinion in Israel about Gaza, so you find out that understandably, most Israelis are for eliminating Hamas. Perfectly understandable, and retaliation, absolutely understandable. You and I agreed on that. But when and another poll shows that 83% of Israelis would support the voluntary outmigration or immigration of Gazans elsewhere. Now, 83% of Israelis, this was a representative sample. Now, nothing that has befallen Gazans heretofore has been voluntary. And this was a sincere sentiment by most Israelis. This is not Israel that I grew up in. And then there were other top government officials. There was one gripping sarcasm saying, one of the ministers in the cabinet saying, please, any country that wants to take the Gazans in, please drop me an email. Such dripping contempt for the 300 people a day being killed. 300 people a day. I think so far it's about 25,000 that we know of.
Yeah.
Utter eradication. Yeah, go ahead.
Although just a slight pushback on that. The 24,000. I mean, look, again, we're in agreement in so much. Every life is sacred. Every Palestinian life is worth as much as every Israeli life. It's the same. But whenever we get these numbers like 24,000, that's from the Hamas health industry or whatever ministry. And like, have there been no Hamas deaths? I think there have.
Well, yeah, but the proportion is very small. Deaths, I think it's the proportion of civilian to Hamas deaths, and of course the IDF doesn't know what it's doing. I mean, anyone who says this is an organized operation and they're moving from this stage to that stage, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, it took them 9 hours. They were an army positioned behind the civilians when an army should be in front of the civilians, and it took them. I don't think it takes 9 hours to cross Israel from the north to the south. It took them 9 hours to get to those desperate people in October 7. And when they got there, there was helicopter hellfire. There was a lot of destruction. So now about you say, I agree with you that one should question, and I do in this epic essay, I do agree, deal quite in detail with the legitimacy of the sources. Now, Haaretz is Israel's paper of record. You know, as I also tell in the essay, when I was growing up, before the gambler from Las Vegas and all the American Jews infiltrated Israel, because I call Israel Little America on the Mediterranean. Before that, I grew up with Haaretz being the most intellectual, the most accurate newspaper. And after it was Yediot and Ma'ariv were sort of broadsheets, not very good newspapers. Now, Haaretz is being reported, is pro-war. It's pro the operation in Gaza. Haaretz has become far less controversial, and it was center-left when I was growing up. Now it's become, I would say, it's neoconservative. The world's been flattened by neoconservatism. So Haaretz has been reporting these numbers via Hamas. And every single human rights entity, some you would recognize, others you would be a little bit skeptical about. Every single human rights entity and people in there have said these are not accurate from minute to minute or from day to day, but broadly accurate. And so I'm happy with them. Then there is Believe Your Lying Eyes. Do you remember that Chris Pryor sketch? I wish we had that. You know, his wife walks on him. Chris Pryor's one of our famous comedians, very funny, politically incorrect, definitely been banned. So his wife walks on him cheating, and he says to her, who are you going to believe? You know, me or your lying eyes? I'm telling you, I'm not cheating.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the same.
Believe your lying eyes. You can, when these, we were not able to get satellite imagery from Gaza, then many, because of the NSA and all kinds of prohibitions that the United States has placed on actually broadcasting the truth. So other scientists, RF scientists, I guess, radar, developed imagery from space. The place is charred. 70% of the infrastructure is gone. Sewerage is gone. Water pipes are gone. Hospitals are gone. No potable water, no communications. Byzantine churches and mosques, gone. They've begun digging up graves now. So we have so many sources of information saying that broadly, this is a very reasonable number. And we haven't even counted people buried beneath the rubble. So I think that there's a sort of Holocaust denial that's been developing. I agree, Hamas should be queried, but I think there's so many other things and other sources that have backed up this number. There are not a few thousand dead. Gaza's gone. 70% of the infrastructure is gone, irreparably so. It will never be.
And ILANA, well, one of the things that I found really strange was that Israel told the Gazans to get the hell out of Gaza City and go to the south of Gaza. And then once they went to the south of Gaza, then what did Israel do? It then started bombing them to hell
Yes.
in the south of Gaza. So I find that very troublesome because, you know, like how can that be justified? I find that
Well,
pretty.
this is what builds up this whole lying eyes theme. Believe your lying eyes. Oh,
Mm,
well, don't believe Hamas. Well, I believe my lying eyes. You know, this whole thing builds up to something very, very sinister. You know me,
mm,
I know you're more open to conspiracy than I, because
yep.
one has justification. I am completely, my brain doesn't go there. But
Mm,
adding up all these dots, connecting government policy, connecting imagery from space, connecting the
mm.
facts that 70% of the infrastructure is gone, the
Oh, I believe that.
two
Yep.
million people have no homes. No homes. 2 million people. So what? 2.2 million in Gaza. So there are 200,000 people left with homes.
Well, see, one of
There's
the things that,
critical mass data that tells us
yeah,
what's
yeah,
happening.
and I don't dispute any of that. In fact, one of the things that also deeply concerns me is one of the at least one person in the Israeli government was suggesting, well, what the Gazans need to do is they need to get out of Gaza and come to Europe. And I'm saying I don't want no, not one. Europe's full. We have enough. Thanks. No, thank you. But it's very disturbing that the Israeli government seems to be driving more what I
Yes,
would consider to be unwanted and arguably illegal migration into Europe. So
and
that's the problem.
exactly. That's such a good point you bring up, because look how Netanyahu has snubbed Biden. Now Biden is disgusting, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we taxpayers are funding. The Republicans have recently, some Republicans come out and, no, we don't want breakfast in schools for hungry American kids, but we want to bomb. We want to pay to bomb Gaza's babies. So
Yeah.
Netanyahu has just said, you know, basically, go fuck yourself, America. We're going to do what the Jewish state needs to do. You need to give us funds. Europe the same. And now this is how they repay. The UK, as you know, is America's bitch and therefore Bibi's
Oh, we are.
bitch,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Noise
you
me.
you do have really good podcasts that are pushing back against this, but you don't see them
Mm.
better than we have. But this is how Israel, it occurred to me, sees Europe and America, just sources to be used. And now you
Yeah.
take these refugees because, hey, these are going to be very angry people. You know they're going to kill Europeans.
And
Um,
yeah, and
right?
along,
Right, David?
yeah, and you can understand that. I don't actually have an issue with the Gazans' anger, but see, one
Yes,
of
but
my
you didn't start this. You shouldn't have to bear the brunt of
no,
it.
none of them.
Our lives will be at risk because of
Yeah.
this. Why must the spillover from the Jewish state's actions be your responsibility and mine?
Well, as you rightly wrote about this way back in the day, the same applies to Iraq. That those who were bombed to hell in Iraq, they ended up going to Germany, France. Some of them engaged in terror, no doubt about it.
Yes.
Same with Syria. It's actually, in a way, it's continuity. This is why we both oppose war. War makes money for some wicked people, but by and large, it disfigures and it destroys, and it's really not something that we should ever support, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, I was unhappy about this whole Israeli government notion. And here, can I ask you, Ilana, Netanyahu himself? I mean, my conclusion is he's a bad guy. He's one of the bad ones. And I don't think you would differ from that, would you?
I used to support Netanyahu. I liked
You
him.
do? Yeah.
Being on the right and having been a Zionist, I have seen, it occurred to me, maybe I was brought up with certain precepts that I myself couldn't. I'm the most disobedient. I'm uniquely unsuited to obedience. Most
Yeah.
disobedient person ever that you'll meet. But I definitely was brought up conditioned to certain ideas, and this is, if Gaza's not going to, you have a moral responsibility as a Jew, as a Christian, to bear witness. And anyone denying mass murder on a scale such as happening in Gaza is not a Christian, is not a Jew, is not a human being. I mean, in Hebrew, probably by now even Ben Shapiro knows the word B'Tselem. I don't know if he can spell it, but if you feel that if you're born, there's a concept in Hebrew, if you're born in his image, you have to honor his creation. I mean, it's
yeah.
And all the pro anti-abortion people, well, those who live by the light of truth, what about murdering small, tiny children and preemies? Have you seen how preemies died in incubators? That is truth.
Yeah. See, the other thing that we've previously discussed is, and I've stuck with this one, and again, this is where we are aligned. There is no morality behind collective punishment. And funny enough, I now look back to World War II, and I look to the bombing of Dresden, for example, and I recoil from that. You know, there was a time I thought, well, we had to do that to save lives. I don't think that anymore.
No,
I just
I agree with you.
Do you know, Ilana? And so
you're a libertarian. I think you're a paleoconservative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely on along that axis. So there can be no moral argument from Christians or Jews or indeed anybody with anything in decency that can justify the mass killing, the culling of Gazans. But so I do accept that is wrong. But then the other side is our friend Lawrence Fox, who's coming along in March to do the live event. He watched, I think it was 56 minutes of footage of October 7th. He seen his response was he threw up. He went and was sick afterwards, having seen what he's seen. So you can understand how people watch that and go, right, let's take them out.
David, you and I, we spoke about this. We did a whole podcast about October 7. You know, I wore the blue and white. You know, we were very emotional and we spoke about it. And you were the one who brought up the issue of collective punishment. I just said the phrase, but you preempted. You said, whatever has happened, nothing can justify the mass murder of innocents. Because however much you might dislike Gazans, you know, the Israeli government is calling them Amalekite, you know, all of them. And one of, you know, so much has this been mainstreamed, some of their, you know, the commentators are saying, that there was an Iranian commentator, quite a prominent bloke that I quote in this essay, saying, it's not only Hamas that is the enemy, every single woman bearing a child, children, old men, they're all enemy. Be that as is may, you cannot eliminate an entire people. You can't mass kill like this. And you and I also, in the same podcast, we discussed options, because another one of those logics, and I think I exhaustively and hermetically seal all the logical arguments that people make for this operation is, oh well, it's a known logical error to say what else could Israel have done? What possibly you and I dealt with this in the first one. And that people say this not knowing that they're just setting up a false dichotomy, a false bifurcation, so that the person listening will believe that, well, exactly, what else could Israel have done? But there are many options, and that is the logic. I mean, I have a good quote here from Admiral James O. Ellis from the Hoover Institute. He said, in classical logic, the false dichotomy or false dilemma is defined as an argument where only two choices are presented, yet more exist, or a spectrum of possible choices exists between two extremes. False dilemmas are usually characterized by either this or that, and they are meant to drive a certain narrative. You and I went over this. There were many ways for Israel to deal with it. In our first podcast, we dealt with a very powerful judicial way to
go after Hamas. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And of course, why not have defended against Hamas put the useless, lumbering, lazy IDF on the border and have the elite units, Golani and Matkal, Sayeret, go in periodically and clean out those tunnels. Yes, there would be dead soldiers doing that. That's what soldiers do. That's what Bibi Netanyahu's brother, brave brother, did in 1976, I believe, in Entebbe, when Jewish and Israeli hostages were taken by the Arafat's PLO. They flew 2,500 miles to Entebbe in Uganda. They didn't bomb Uganda. 100 men flew 2,500 kilometers. They landed. They killed only those who had to be killed, justifiably, and they brought back all the hostages. Bibi Netanyahu's brother didn't come back. He led his men like generals used to. Today, these generals are on Fox News, swilling cocktails, and they're giving the orders to chubby little men on artificial intelligence consoles who bomb from above, right?
Yeah.
Bibi Netanyahu's brother led his men into battle. There were other ways to deal with this. There were. I mean, it was terribly painful, and Israel was a. But what disturbs me is nobody in Israel. I mean, I won't go into my side, my family, but nobody in Israel seems to raise this issue. Only the hostages. And what Bibi Netanyahu has done is made the hostages forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if the hostages will be coming back, to be honest, Ilana.
But the world seemingly doesn't care when they see that every day 300 men, women, and babies are killed.
Yeah. No, but is there a reason for that? Like some people will say, I mean, but there's a couple of points I want to put to you. First of all, would you say that at this point, Israel under Netanyahu is a terrorist state?
Oh, wow, that's tough. You answer first.
Well,
just you to ask me. I think I called it in my essay. I called it today's Jewish Taliban is not the Israel I grew up in. Well, they're doing what the Taliban did, blowing up ancient this and ancient that, and I think that there's a huge danger, and people say to me, "Quiet, we want Israel to survive," but this is the death sentence for Israel, because not only are you encouraging Hamas and acolytes and followers in perpetuity for generations to come, but you're seriously endangering the Jewish state. I mean, you mentioned it when we first began discussing this: is regional war.
Yep. We talked about that. Yeah, we covered all this, you know. Well, then another question was, how do you feel about the fact that South Africa, one of your previous homelands, has brought Israel to the international court?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, basically.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah, war crimes. Yeah.
So So the other thing is a lot of really, and I have Into the Cannibals part, published in 2011. I have one of the few. I don't think anyone has done this. Into the Cannibals part anatomizes what we see today as the democratic, so-called democratic. It is democratic. It's by the will of the majority, as is Gaza by the will of the majority. Murder by majority vote is still murder. South Africa's dispensation is democratic. Most Black South Africans want an anti-white society, but there's an extensive chapter about Israel going back and its relationships to the apartheid state. And of course, my book is quite pro the national apartheid, the National Party under apartheid. Not for apartheid, obviously, but for other reasons that we won't go into because we'll go on a tangent. But I go into the pro-Palestinian. People should buy this book if only to read. ANC is very pro-Palestinian. ANC's pro. There were organizations like COSATU and PAGAD that in those days were very, very pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel. Now, it is quite possible to be pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel, pro-Islam and anti-Jewish, and still bring a viable case
mm,
against the mass murder in Gaza. So what the neoconservatives and
mm,
conservatives have done is once again promote this logical fallacy. In other words, oh, they ad hominem South Africa. They level an attack on character. Oh, they're anti-Semites. They are pro-Islam. They couldn't have brought a decent case. Now, I'm not saying the case is genius. I think there's some
yeah,
problems with the definition of genocide. It's what we're
yeah,
seeing is ethnocide,
yeah.
definitely ethnocide, mass eviction, mass murder. But are you is the point? Law can get very Talmudic and legalistic. Is the point here? Did they have another instrument? Is there an international convention against ethnocide? I don't think so.
No,
So I think this is their only option. And are we discussing stopping mass murder? So what do you care what it's defined? Ethnocide, genocide. Um, so I think it's a good thing. And also another thing before I forget, um, a lot of Boers, it's unfortunate that there's my great friend Daniel Root. You should have him on your program.
mm,
A great patriot who helped me, a Boer who helped me with sources for Into the Cannibal Spot, and Steve Hofmeyer, a great patriot,
yep.
a musician. You've had him. He's
I
great.
know those guys.
He's up your alley. He would be an amazing guest to your upcoming event. But those people are in touch with the history of the Boers and all that. But a new generation, much like Israel, has arisen in South Africa, and they follow America. They get all their opinions from Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, and they don't look to the old commentators like myself. I'm old South African, and Dan Root and other patriots. They look at more modern neoconservative, and a lot of them have said to me, "Oh, bringing the neoconservative line of argument for Israel, said, oh, well, you wrote the book for the Boers, and Into the Cannibals Pot was
Yeah,
pro-white.
yeah.
Why, if they did exactly the same as Israel is doing, um, South Africa would have been better off. But these people don't understand the old South Africa. They are insulting the Boers.
Mm,
Nothing the Boers ever did ever compares to what Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, the Jewish Taliban, is doing in Gaza. Nothing. It's an insult to South Africa. They were positively civilized. Of course, there was massive injustice. For example, the Soweto uprising. There were not tens of thousands killed. There was an uprising. There was a small band of cops. They panicked,
mm,
and there was shooting. Hundreds were killed, not tens of thousands. It's
mm.
an insult to the Afrikaner history to compare them to the current Israel.
One of the other things, Alana, that we've seen since the last time you and I spoke on one of these programs is that in the light of the events happening in Gaza and the mass killing and so on and so forth, cities like not just London, but London and lots of other British cities have seen massive pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza rallies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever seen the place as polarized. And the Jewish population in places like London is pretty much having to go undercover because we're seeing like hundreds of thousands of these marchers on a weekly basis virtually. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, how is this good for Jewish people?
Exactly.
It's like a massive own goal. And yet there it is. And what's causing it is still happening. As you and I record this, I'm sure it's still happening. And therefore, I wonder why the Israeli government has to know, like, you're really polarizing. Maybe they want that. What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe it has to do, but you make a really good point. It's a bullseye on every Jew's back. It really is, this offensive in Gaza. And, you and I have always been disturbed by Islamic terrorists in our midst to do with immigration. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But you know something? I agreed with the Quad who came out in Congress and demurely said that Palestinians are human beings too, and they were sanctioned and censured by Chuck Schumer and the Democratic cabal and the Republican cabal, and they were silenced. I agree with them. And if I didn't agree with them, I would support their right to voice care for the Palestinians. I mean, I've never, the whole thing, this is not anti-Semitism, those, in my opinion, this is horror at what Israel is doing, these demonstrations. So what Israel's doing and what the commentariat is doing, Democrat, Republican, and in the UK again, is shouting anti-Semitism and shouting blood libel. Basically, any criticism, and I've been told, don't send us these columns by my sources, my conservative sources. Any criticism of Israel now is being labeled anti-Semitism. I don't believe demonstrating against the mass murders in Gaza is anti-Semitism.
But
They might be anti-Semites. They might be driven to anti-Semites. They might have been anti-Semites. They might be anti-Semites, but the cause of wanting to stop this, it's too late, David. You know, Gaza is irreparable, and it cannot be restored. The lives cannot be restored. The infrastructure cannot be. So it is ethnocide. When you destroy a community, you've ethnically cleansed it. I don't know. You've killed 2% of the population. Okay, I don't know if that's genocide. I don't much care about these legalistic Talmudic things, but I think that demonstration is the right thing. And I wonder, David, you remember after 9/11, all the Jews, the rabbis, were out holding hands with the Muslim imams, marching and saying Islam is not hateful. Islam is peace. This is just a faction. Where are all these rabbis? Yeah, where are they? Tell me. You tell me.
Yeah, well,
Jews not demonstrating. Jews for peace, the Jewish left. Where is it?
Well, there are a small number of Jewish voices that have dared speak up. You're one of the most probably prominent and most noteworthy of them, ILANA. You know, because you have been forthright and consistent, which one of your strengths. I try to be similar. I might be wrong, but I'm consistently wrong if that's the case. but you know, the worrisome situation is that I don't think things can go back because this is a fundamental change that we're seeing. The other thing about this is, and we said this in our very first show we did on this topic, it's absolutely wiped Ukraine off the map. No, everyone's forgotten about Zelensky in Russia. It's not a big deal anymore. So it seems to fulfill a lot of what I would call, and I've increasingly taken to calling NATO the axis of evil. I've got to tell you, because they are. I'm absolutely right in that. And it's fulfilling a lot of their agendas. It's playing into. It really disturbs me. And yet, now just to put my cards on the table, I oppose all terrorists. I really do. And I consider Hamas to be absolutely terrorist. Some people have turned around to me and said, well, you're a hypocrite, David, because Israel are terrorists as well. So do you oppose them? And it's tricky. It is tricky. But
I think whether you are mass murdering, whether it's within the state, without the state, the individual, or the collective, you are a terrorist by your definition, by your actions. You know, reality is the best litmus test for truth, right? What you do is what you are. What you do is what you are. If Israel is committing these mass murders in Gaza, which it is, believe your lying eyes, it is terroristic, and so is Hamas. You and I will admit Hamas, of course, is terroristic.
Yeah, that's right. And what they did on October the 7th was absolutely beyond the pale and depraved. And the people who did that and planned it, as we talked about previously, deserve retribution. But it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to do a Dresden, basically, on the whole of Gaza, which is kind of where we are. And what do you think the implication would be, ILANA, for example, the West Bank? For that side of things, the Palestinians there, because they can see what's happened Gaza direction. Is that going to make things better or worse there?
I think we haven't. I to have to think about the West. I think there's a lot happening there as well. A lot of, the in this essay, I say that the concentration, the most Americanized, and that's the thing, the most Americanized, the most population, the settlers are those people with the most pull, with the most funding, and the
Yeah,
most political pull, and they are very well defended. They are very well armed. They have taken to autonomously evicting Palestinians and so on and so
yeah,
forth. So the West Bank is heavily defended by it, and that's the thing. Well, that's what I want to ask you, and I bring this up in the essay. When you see the October 7 victims, you get the feeling, when I talk about the old Israel in which I was raised, you get very much the feeling of that old Israel. Lovers, not haters, peaceniks,
they were.
older
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
and poor, and not rich, poor. Have you seen the homes that were
yep.
destroyed?
We talked about that. Yep,
Poor people.
yep.
And those people, the West Bank is very, very well defended, very well sponsored, stateside as well in the US. Those people, the state of Israel, the Jewish state, took 9 hours to get there. And I quote extremely well-spoken woman who was Porat, I think her name was, who was taken, who was a victim of October 7. In beautiful Hebrew, she says, yes, our side, our army killed when she left the house that was under bombardment. She said we were blown up by IDF.
Yeah,
The,
yeah.
the,
No,
the people
yeah,
who were lying on the lawn were terrorists and our own people blown up by IDF. This is not a precise military. This is a
no.
very crude operation. So
And
I'm asking you, what do you think about that, Poppy? Is it possible? I just floated the idea that 9 hours to get to these people. When you arrive there, you unleash with helicopter hellfire. Do you
yeah.
think these people mattered to the Jewish state, the people on the south, as much as the West Bank?
Well, you see, it's interesting because, and again, you and I were to the fore and said talking about this at the time. I'm massively suspicious about that gap in time. I cannot believe that it was organic. It's almost like it was a small price to pay, allowing those people to be sacrificed to the barbarians in Hamas, so that Israel and Netanyahu could come in and basically flatten Gaza. It almost feels like that to me. I don't understand how. I mean, I know you've and you said this, Ilana, like the IDF of 2024 is not what it was 20 years ago or longer even. And neither is America, for example. But
Exactly. Our armies, as well as our armies, are the same.
yeah. It was the same with us as well. But
Yeah.
I can't believe that with all the intelligence and all this, the technology and stuff, that could have been a complete surprise, and that the
They
delay.
had the intelligence. They had the intelligence. They admit
They
it
knew.
now with
They knew.
impunity. With
Yep.
impunity, they admit they had the intelligence. There were 2 young women writing
Yep.
reports, and they were discarded, absolutely discarded.
Yeah.
I tend to believe if you show, I accept what you're saying, and the horror in Gaza is such that I can believe what you're saying. You make a valid point. I tend to believe if you show me you're stupid and evil, I believe you. I don't think you're putting on an act.
Well, who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes. If you are that, if you're as evil as that, then I'm kind of believing it. But it does put Israel in a particular state. And here's another thing I wanted to put to you. Like a lot, like you've stepped out of sight of the Overton window, and you've been very, and everyone should read Ilana's essay on this. It's very profound and from the heart.
But it covers everything. It covers all the.
Yeah.
Lift anything out, right?
No, exactly. No, it's very comprehensive, and people should let's just bring it back up again very quickly. But here's the point in this one, Ilana. We're able to put this out on Rumble and get away with it, right? But the truth of the matter is, in a lot of other areas, these kind of criticisms, critiques of Israel, you're going to be slapped down. because, and some people say to me, does this not demonstrate that one of the great tropes about the Jewish sort of diaspora is that, well, it controls maybe Twitter. Elon Musk, I mean, he was recently,
Yes. He was brought to a tour. You know what? And it was so insensitive. Excellent point, David. He was summoned to Israel
yeah,
and taken by Bibi Netanyahu himself because what? Elon Musk is one of the wealthiest men, one of a few billion, the billionaires,
yeah,
maybe trillionaire. I don't know. He was summoned to go through the wreckage of October 7. And I saw on Twitter a young man whose home they were going through, not with his permission. It was a propagandized
yeah,
event. And
yeah,
you brought this up in our first video, staging in a theater, this whole thing. It was so propagandized. It
yeah.
was very, 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 yes. You ask about Jewish influence. What do you think?
I think it's real. I think it's certainly a factor. It's a factor, and it does surprise me. I mean, for example, Britain, the UK has also been involved in this, and that appalls me. See, my view is, and this is, I don't know if we will disagree in this or not. I think we probably agree. Britain should be completely out of there. And maybe historically we caused problems, but whatever. We shouldn't be involved. It's not our concern. I don't think the US should be involved, but it is. And so I mean, you said this to me, Ilana. I remember the things you said to me, believe it or not. I mean, I think it's for the powers in that area to deal with things in
Yes.
whichever way.
I love regionalism, exactly.
Yeah, regionalism. Yeah, but I don't think the UK or US in particular, those two nations should be involved. And I don't think it's helpful. And it appalls me that our Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has been out there and playing the euphemistic games and stuff. Which
And
are
we're prolonging it. We're by subsidizing murder. We're
yeah,
prolonging it, and we're tainting ourselves, bringing upon ourselves, as you said, not only these refugees, but also their fury, because they're going to erupt in generations to come, and
well,
innocent people are gonna suffer.
I mean, can I ask you as well, Alana, another quick question? Like, we've also seen in an extension to the Israel-Gaza situation, we've seen in Yemen, we've seen the Houthis now, Houthis getting themselves the whole problem there. We know about the ongoing bombing by the Saudis and the US essentially of there, and the UK's and the US are down there now bombing the hell out of them. So it's more war. I kind of think all of this is explained by the war machine is always hungry. It makes money from it. It does,
And
Alana.
have you seen one general who opposes war and opposes Israel? No, no. There used to be a general. I mean, I see people don't understand. I'm an old warrior on this, having boiled over Bush. As soon as there's a war and we're involved, I switch to the left. I don't watch Fox military entertainment.
Yeah.
I don't watch the war porn because you'll get nothing there. I switch to the left. At least you'll see amazing journalists like Richard Engel and Clarissa Ward, heroes, absolute excellent journalism from MSNBC, CNN. People don't understand how impartial I am. I don't have allegiances, only as much as I can formulate truth based on natural law, 10 commandments,
Yeah.
just war theory, deductive reason. That's thing. By all those accounts, by the sixth commandment, it's not opinion. These things are not opinion. These are
They're not.
immutable truths.
Yeah. Now,
Thou shalt not murder is not opinion. It's not my. That's why I say this essay is not opinion. I think it's truth. It's truth.
okay, another question for this. We're going to go to the 60 minutes in this one, right? Because there's so much to cover to pack.
I have to ask you also about what you think about. You said you believe there is inordinate Jewish power.
Yeah, I do.
I cry. I literally are brought to tears, even at the thought of these things. It's really emotional. Sorry, you've never seen me do that, right?
No.
Because this is like it's been my childhood. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I've
Totally. Yeah. No, it's understandable,
sorry.
Alana. Yeah. But
It's a terrible thing when I see, it's just horrible. What do you think about this Hannibal? Oh God, me crying. That's horrible. This
Hannibal.
Hannibal doctrine. What do you think about that? Do you know that?
No, tell me the Hannibal
Oh, the
doc.
Hannibal doctrine has been brought up by at least when it's been brought up a lot on the. It is a doctrine, and I think that the Israeli military had that rather than let any hostages go into captivity, you kill your own. That in some circumstances you kill your own. You kill your own, and people brought. There were many commentators like Scott Ritter,
Yeah.
who's a very reliable. He's very passionate, and I think he went overboard maybe with eroticizing Hamas, but I relied on his
In the stuff. Yeah.
during Bush. I mean, he was a weapons inspector. He's a very passionate, but he spoke about this doctrine and also mowing the lawn, mowing these words that exist in IDF documentation and military. Occasionally, you go in there and we have a expression in Hebrew, kasach. You literally, that's in Arabic. You literally mow the lawn to keep people in check. And Hannibal you kill your own sometimes when you have to. And when I see Gaza, it's suddenly, I would never have entertained that. But I think as much as you're entertaining inordinate Jewish power, I'm even thinking about this doctrine, because there was a helicopter, a pilot, an Israeli pilot, that was being interviewed on Democracy Now, I think it was, or some other quite reputable outlet. And he said what you saw in October 7 after the terrorist infiltrated was mass, he put it this way, mass Hannibal. In other words, the IDF didn't go in there and pick out the terrorists. They
See,
I don't know. I want to hear no, because I'm emotional about this.
You see, I could have sort of supported and would support tactical, very sort of targeted activity, but that's not what we saw. I mean, we've all seen video footage of just mass detonation of Gaza City and whole neighborhoods leveled. We've seen that. So they did cut the grass. I mean, they absolutely have done that. And also, Alana, I mean, do you bomb an ideology? See, it's trouble. This is problematical. Here's a question. Another question for you, and see if you can address this one. Ultimately, if you have a neighbor, if your neighbor says, Alana, we want to kill you, right? I'm just telling you, Alana, we really despise you and we want to kill you. Is it wrong that you take action against them? What is it? Because that's a moral issue for me, that one. Because that's where I am sympathetic to Israel on the one hand. Because if you're going to kill me, then honestly, Alana, I might want to take action to stop you, because I'm not going to have you kill my family. You know, do you accept that?
You want to kill responsible people, and of course, Hamas, we are told again and again, embed in the civilian population, and that's why, of course, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge of conscience as well. Ultimately, the offender, he who offends against innocents, is responsible for his deeds and not a third party. So Israel's been saying, Hamas made me do it. Hamas ate my homework. Hamas ate my conscience.
Yeah.
Hamas is terrible. Yes, the Palestinian people have also supported Hamas, have voted for Hamas.
I mean,
can you go? But and the rationale behind Bibi's actions and the various policy papers is, yes, you have to kill everybody. You have to kill. And the commentators, the pregnant woman is your enemy. Heavens forbid. I mean, the babies in incubators, the old men, they're all your enemies. You have to kill them. That's what they've done. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think I can't endorse that. No.
No,
If
it's
you
one.
know, look, if you know in advance, I mean, there was so many things to do against this. Why have you cultivated? Israel's a developed country like the United States, but we can't afford to be complacent either. But Israel cannot afford to have a military that behaves as if it is an affluent first world country. It has to have a very, um, very prepared and defensive military. They didn't defend at all. Everything was porous. I'm
Yeah,
surprised they didn't get to Tel Aviv or to Jerusalem or what have
yeah.
you. They infiltrated at least 70
Well,
locales. So
maybe,
it, if you, if Hamas is, as we discussed this on our first podcast,
mm,
if Hamas is as dangerous as you claim, and they are,
mm,
listen to your intelligence, put your 500,000 lumbering army on the border,
I agree. Yeah.
ahead of the people, not behind them, not hiding behind women and old men and babies. Put them there. Train your special ops to do incursions. You find out that there's a Hamasnik somewhere, you go building by building and you take losses. You have to in that environment. No, we're just going to bomb everything because we don't want to have Israeli soldiers die. By the way, David, I did a column comparing, just to drive over the point that you're grilling me on this. I said to myself, I want to know, I have the same questions about that you have. Gaza is such an extraordinary, densely populated place.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I wanted to see if our special ops, our Marines, the American Marines, behaved the same way in another densely populated battle, the
Mhm.
second battle for Fallujah. I took the numbers, I did the math. It was fun. And we'll give
Yeah.
people the link. They can see the math I did. At that stage, Gaza, the death toll in Gaza was 15,000. I came up with a comparison. The same. It was
Yeah.
building to building, house to house. The Marines fought. They took immense casualties.
Yeah.
Same sort of density. Fallujah before the second battle was about 400,000 people.
Yeah.
The Marines killed 700 people. If
Mhm.
Israel had done that, it would be many folds that. If
Yeah.
Israel had fought in
Yeah.
compared it, and if likewise, if our Marines had fought in Gaza, and they
Yeah.
would have been as heroic as they were, go building to building precision, it would have cut the casualties by like a fifth or something. I do the math.
Excuse me,
So
Alana.
this is, don't worry. So this is not a precision military.
No, it's not. It's not. It's an inordinately. It's a massive story. And Alana, in some ways we've only scratched the surface of it. Although in our previous podcast together, we've also covered this in huge detail. And as I say, although I am broadly aligned with your thinking, I do in my heart want to support Israel, but Netanyahu makes that remarkably difficult for me. And at another level, as I said earlier, I don't want to be involved. I don't want the UK involved.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't want that. I want Israel. If Israel wants to take on all those regional powers, sort it out on your own, ourselves alone. Do it that way if you want, or maybe find ways to live alongside people. But I mean, yeah, it's a very very tricky one.
Is the UK sending assistance to Israel?
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah, yeah. Financial and problem because again, it's the war. Look, Alana, the war machine. You've written about it for as long as I've known you. The war machine feeds off this kind of stuff. It loves it. I mean, I think if they could get a war with Iran, they'd be really, really
Oh,
happy.
they're aiming for that. They're
They
aiming
want
for
that, yeah. Which I think if they can't get the war with well, they got a war with Moscow, and they'd love a war with Iran, and that's because fortunes will be made. And
yes.
I only hope that, for example, if you get a change in your president in November, I would hope that Trump does something different. But
What do
would
you
he?
think? Yeah. Well, what do you think? I think he's angry. I think he doesn't like being bossed around by anybody. Bibi
Mm,
Netanyahu or
oh, definitely not.
Zelensky,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think you were right, David, all along to because I could sort of, liked Kennedy, and then I liked DeSantis, but look at them. They are Israel first
Oh, they are.
candidates, right?
Yep. Yep. Trump's
You were
different.
right about Trump. He's the last hope. Will he stop? Would he hasn't said anything about Israel because he can't. This would imperil him with the Fox war porn conditioned ditto heads. That would imperil him. These people live for the heaving bosoms going on about IDF hot women and IDF Krav Maga and IDF this and
It's what I call Nikki Haley syndrome. A desire for endless war. But I mean, she's going to be
like a witch. No, imagine looking at her for the next 4 years.
Well, happily that will not happen, so let's not worry about that. As I say, I would hope that if Trump can get in, and he's our best chance of perhaps pulling back, because I worry if we keep going in the direction we're in, war with Iran could be the next thing, and ultimately, actually, irony of irony, Israel could be wiped off the map too. It's actually, it could be
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think there's dark forces at many levels, spiritual as well as physical, militarily, political, all of that there. And it's not good. But the best we can ever do, Ilana, is, as you've done so eloquently, be truthful, and in your essay, detail everything out. I would commend it to everybody. Read it and see if if you can take issue. I've read it, Ilana. I don't really take very much issue with it, although as I say, I've been called a Zionist shill. I mean, just because I'm a Zion. Apparently, I'm in the. Israel's paying me money apparently, which is a surprise to my bank manager because he hasn't seen it. I've not seen it. Just to shill for Israel, but I haven't. I have been relentlessly.
Yeah, and I've been banned again by well, at least my Israel stuff is. My syndication went in 2002 because of Bush, and now Bibi. I really have the confidence that I'm an old lady. I can publish these columns, but no, as you said, there's something about. Is it the Jewish influence? That you cannot speak ill of Israel in conservative quarters. You cannot. And I think that this is what Trump's up against. Do you think that's what he's up against?
I do. And actually, on Twitter, there's a very interesting thought experiment happening as we record this. And there's a guy called Dom Lucre, Dom, Lucre, Dom Lucre. He's got like 1 million followers or whatever. And what Dom kind of twigged very, very recently was, if you're critical of the Israeli state or the whole sort of the Jewish thing, then you have troubles on Twitter. So what he did was, and you can check it out on his feed, he inverted the words. He substituted Muslim, the word Muslim, for Jewish, and seen what happened there, and everything was okay. So isn't it weird? So he made some of the.
He's being shadow banned.
Yes.
I'm totally throttled, and that's why I say it is a joke to say that what's his name, the ex guy, Elon Musk has opened things, because I can't get anywhere on Twitter. It's just.
No, I've been crushed on it for about the past month or so, and I think
criticizing Israel.
Thou shalt not criticize Israel. But the thing about you and the thing about me is we have to talk and say the thing that we believe to be morally right, and that's a hard truth.
How do you live with yourself?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to shill for anybody. Nobody tells me what to say or think. And
that's why you're my best friend. That's why you're
Ilana, we stand together, on this one. And the good thing about this podcast, when it goes,
but you're kind, David. You're a kind human being. I think kindness, because this is not about us or us being brave. This is about these people that are dying.
No, I don't want to see anybody dying. Well, we said this from day one. We didn't. I didn't want to see anyone.
I mean, their meager belongings, these little donkeys, carting them where?
I read that. That was really
nowhere to go to the south. Carting them home. It's just tragic.
I read the bit about the donkeys. That was bloody sad.
Don't get me.
That was the cry out loud moment. But I mean, we look. we opposed all the slaughter that was going to happen in Ukraine back at the end of, I think it was February 2022. And what have we had since then? 500, 600,000 deaths of Ukrainians, let alone Russians. All wrong. And
by the way, I also looked at a number. Next time we meet, I will give you the number of Russia's killing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's a fraction of what Israel's doing. Isn't that interesting? A fraction. I think it's in the order of, I don't know if it's like over 2 years. Is it 3 years?
2 years.
2 years. I don't want to quote numbers, but it's just about where Gaza is after 3 months.
Because
I will check my numbers. Russia, like America, it's not the same like Israel. They're the butchers of Gaza.
Yeah, Russia didn't want to wipe Ukraine off the face of the earth. That's your fundamental difference. And
I think about 20 or 20 something thousand civilians have died. I'll check my figures for next time, but I looked at that as well to get a measure of Russia's toll on the Ukrainian population. It's nothing like Gaza. The same as the US in Fallujah. Nothing like it.
Yeah. No. It is horrific, and we've borne testimony to it. You, most notably, ILANA, given your background, have borne testimony to truth, and for that, I commend you. We're going to have to bring this one to an end. It's gone way past our allocated time.
Okay, one more question for you, David. Yeah. Do you agree that COVID and Gaza are the main stories of the decade?
Yeah.
COVID and Gaza.
Yeah. Ukraine is a diversion that I'm not concerned about at all. I'm worried about health tyranny. Actually, again, same thing. I don't like health tyranny, and I don't want to see tyranny against human beings as well. You know, whether it's at the end of a vaccine or whether it's at the end of a ballistic missile detonating into neighborhoods. I don't want to see that. You know, so
but COVID, as you cover so well in all your podcasts of late with Naomi Wolf, COVID destroyed speech, destroyed movement, shuttered our properties, prohibited our freedom of movement.
Well, actually, well, just on that one again, some people have said to me, "Isn't it interesting that when they hear the defenders of Israel telling Netanyahu what a great guy he is." This is the same Netanyahu who locked down Israel, who forced people to take 5 to 6 jabs. The Israeli population is one of the most heavily jabbed in the world. Its level of access. So actually, in a way, butchered his own people.
And you read my mind. In my new book, there's obviously mention of Gaza, but I call him from COVID Capo. K-A-P-O. Capo is of the concentration camps.
Yeah.
The Capos were the Jews who actually supervised concentration camps. To killer in Gaza, Capo. Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point, David. He was ruthless about COVID regs.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget. So there was a real sign. Everyone should have picked up on that. And I remember I did rail against Israel then, because this is monstrous. Why is this being imposed on the people of Israel? So in a way, maybe that was the aperitif, and now we're in the main course, which is essentially the cannibalization of Gaza, and it's not going to be good. But as I say, ILANA, what we can do is what we do, and that is put out our honest opinions, and people are welcome to agree with us or differ, but whatever they want.
David, thank you for letting me work through this. Really appreciate it.
No, appreciate that. And thanks, ILANA. And thanks, everyone, for listening to Listen Hard Truth. Do make sure you subscribe to the platform as well. And we will be back, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. But from ILANA and myself for tonight, good night.